I got a $50 Starcaster Stratocaster, and I decided to turn it into a Tom Delonge style riff machine. The first thing I'm going to do is take the strings off and disassemble everything. Then I'm removing the neck, and I'm going to start removing all of the hardware from the body. This guitar surprised me because it was actually very high quality, and I heard that Starcasters were kind of worse than Squiers. The interior was shielded with conductive paint, and it had a ground lug to it. It also had very interesting pickups. The single coils had top and bottom magnets along protruding poles, rather than just one solid bar magnet along the bottom. The pole pieces stuck out above the pickup. I'm very interested to try these in another project just for fun. I probably won't use them, they're probably terrible, but who knows, maybe they're really good. But I just thought their construction was very unique. I never had a guitar that had pickups like that. Now that I've removed the tremolo screws and the block, here we go. This guitar was made in May of '09. The block surprised me too. It was pretty hefty. It felt heavier than a lot of Squier trem blocks that I've held. I'm just cleaning up the body now that there's no hardware on it. And now it's time to move on to the neck. Taking off the string trees, and then I'll be taking off the tuners. If you like content like this and want to see more, please subscribe. This Starcaster was built in Indonesia. Now I'm using a straight level to adjust the truss rod and get the neck as straight as I can with maybe just a little bit of relief in the middle. I'm using a fret rocker to find any high frets, and then I'm using a Sharpie marker to mark the top of that fret. And as I grind that fret down, that marker will disappear. Now I'm going to be using a sanding block, and it has varying degrees of grit on each side, starting at 400 and ending at 1200. After going over the whole fretboard with the sanding block, I used the fret rocker again, and now I'm using a very special fret file. Along the edge it is concave, and it runs over the fret, and that returns a rounded edge to the top of that fret, because the sanding block basically just plowed everything down to having a flat top. So I want to return it to having a nice round edge. Again, I use the fret rocker just to make sure that everything is still good. After that, I'm going to dress the fret ends. And again, I was very surprised with this guitar. The fret ends were not sharp, they were not protruding. This was actually a pretty good quality guitar, but I wanted to make the ends just a little bit more round. I have definitely dealt with a lot of Squiers that were in worse shape than this Starcaster. I guess in May of '09 in Indonesia, they had some good quality control. Now I'm using very fine steel wool because I want to get the years of grime off of this fingerboard, and I'm also going to use it to polish up the frets, get any kind of oxidization off there, and make them nice and shiny. After the fretboard has been cleared of its grime and the frets have been polished, I use lemon oil to hydrate the fretboard. And it had a pretty beautiful fretboard with nice, relatively tight grain in comparison to a lot of the budget guitars that I'm seeing these days. I'm going to clean the headstock. I'm going to get a Q-tip and get inside the truss rod cover to get all the dust out of there. And now I'm going to use Car Compound, Meguiar's Ultimate Compound, because I want to get rid of any dullness in the finish and bring back as much shine as I can. Now that it has a nice glossy finish, I'm going to do the same thing on the body. I'm also going to use the buffer tool that I connect to my hand drill, and that just makes really nice quick work of it, and will probably get me the best finish with its rotations. Look at that nice glossy finish. I have a Fender Genuine Parts 500K potentiometer that I am going to be using as the single volume knob. And the Invader style pickup. Once that is in place, I'm picking the knob. There's the right one. And then I'll be soldering the pickup to the volume. After that is done, I'm moving on to the output wires for the output jack. The white will be the hot, the black will be the ground. I'm going to twist them together and then feed them through the hole to the output jack cavity. Now that that's done, I'm going to replace the ground wires. I'm reusing the ground wire that had the stud that went to the inside the body cavity to the conductive shielding paint, and then I will also be using a ground wire to go around to the trem claw. Now I'm replacing all of the hardware. And I got really lucky on this one. This pickguard, the holes lined up almost perfect with all the original holes. A couple screws had to go in at a little bit of an angle, but for the most part, all of them went in straight. Now that everything is hooked up with the electronics and the ground wire is in place on that trem claw, I'm going to be replacing the springs. And I'm going to be using the two outers to come in at an angle for even more tension. I really want this trem bridge to be decked the whole time, because we won't be using the tremolo. Now I'm tightening it so I get all the tension and keep that block and that bridge decked. Even though Tom DeLonge uses a hardtail these days, his early prototype still had the trem bridge. Now that the body is done, I'm moving on to the neck, where I'm replacing the string trees and the tuners. I thought it was really cool that this was a Starcaster, because that is Tom Delonge's current signature model, but it's the classic Starcaster hollow body. But, you know, this is kind of fun, a Starcaster Stratocaster. It had the perfect large 70s style headstock, which Tom prefers, and it was painted to match, so that was kind of nice. Now that all the hardware is back on, both the body and the neck, it is time to put the two pieces back together. Time for string. Skinny top, heavy bottom. This is what Tom DeLonge uses in Blink-182. Again, I want to talk about the quality of this cheap guitar. For a cheap guitar, it was higher quality than a lot of the Squiers that I have dealt with. By the end of it, the intonation was perfect, the string action was low, and everything was nice, smooth, and comfortable. I was very happy with how this turned out. Now that the strings are on, I just adjusted the string height, and I am moving on to intonation. Again, I got nice low action out of this guitar, and intonation was spot on with no problems. Alright, here she is. Looking beautiful. Again, perfect intonation. Nice low setup. Feels really good. I mean, this was an excellent guitar build. Now, what I'm going through here is a PV Viper, and I have it on a Tube Screamer. I'm going through a Plexi, and no effect. Now let's see if I can remember any Blink-182 riffs. It's been a long time, and I apologize that my recording equipment is not pro. especially going from an overdrive into a slightly driven amp. It gives that perfect tone that you're looking for. And when you roll back the volume, you're able to play melodic parts. And then you roll that volume up. Roll that volume back down. Roll that volume back up. Well, that does it. I took this $50 cheap guitar that was beat up and dirty and turned it into a Tom Delonge riff machine. Altogether, I probably had about $170 put into it, including the price of the guitar itself. I could easily flip this for $200 plus. This thing took the setup beautifully, better than any guitar I've ever had. It really took the setup nice. Nothing left to be desired.